In section 4-5, it's still on factoring, but now it's also on solving. Really, it's almost the exact same thing as 4-4, except you have to, ready, write this down, set equal to 0. That's going to be really the most important step. Let's say that we have the following problem. 2x squared plus x equals 15. We have to take the 15 to the other side to make it equal to 0. And this happens anytime you have an x squared. Next year when you have Miss Miles in trig, she will ask you, what do you do if you have an x squared? And your answer to her, set it equal to 0. Alright, now we need to factor. The good news is you know the factors of 2x are 2x and 1x. Now the factors of 15 you can guess, 3 and 5 maybe. Let's test it out. 3 and 1 makes 3, 2 and 5 makes 10. That'll never give me the 1 that I need in the middle. Let's try switching 3 and 5. Let's try the inside. 5 times 1 is 5. 2 times 3 is 6. That will be possible to get a 1 if I make the 6 a positive and if I make the 5 a negative. So just follow your lines and put them where they belong respectively. Now guys, you learned in Algebra 1 that when you have these two things set equal to 0, you have to set them each equal to 0. It doesn't matter which one is 0, they could one or the other or both be 0 in order for the equation to be 0. So we're going to do 2x minus 5 equals 0, and we're also going to do x plus 3 equals 0. Now solve. Add 5. Divide by 2. You have a solution. On this one, all you have to do is subtract 3, and you have a solution. Let's try one more. If you wanted to check if these are right, you would just plug them up at the top. Okay. Let's say that you have 6x squared plus x minus 15 equals 0. Notice it's already set equal to 0, so you don't have to change it. If it was not set equal to 0, you would have to change it. Double parenthesis. Let's try some random factors of 6, like 6x and 1x, and random factors of 15, 3 and 5. Let's test. That would make a 3x. That would make a 30x. That would never give us the 1x in the middle that we need. Let's try switching the 3 and the 5. The middle would give you 5x, and the outsides would give you 18. Again, that would never give you the 1 that you need in the middle. Let's try something different. Instead of 6 and 1, let's try 2 and 3. 3 and 5 makes 15. 2 and 3 make 6. That would never give you the 1 that you need in the middle. Let's switch the 3 and the 2. 5 and 2 makes 10. 3 and 3 makes 9. You can get a 1 as long as the 10 is positive and the 9 is negative. Follow your signs, put the plus here and the minus here. Last step, set them both equal to 0. subtract the 5, divide by your 3. This one, add the 3, divide by your 2. Many students wonder if there's a different way to be able to factor other than just guess and check. So what I'm going to teach you is I'm going to teach you a way that always works. Now some people really love this way and some people really just like guess and check. You can make that pick, but I'm going to show you 2 examples using, I call it the book way because it's actually the way the book teaches people to factor. But here you go, I'm going to teach you how to do it. The first thing you need to be able to do is you need to be able to identify A, B, and C just like we have been doing. Okay? Now, step 1 is you take A and you multiply by C. So in this example, we would do 16 times negative 3. Well, 16 times negative 3 is negative 48. Now, I know you might be thinking, what are you going to do with that negative 48 there? You need to think of factors, like things that multiply together to equal 48. You need to think of things that multiply to 48, but they would add to negative 22. So I'm thinking to myself, 2 and 24. That one wasn't too hard, was it? Because 2 times 24 makes 48. Now we need a negative 48, we need a negative 22. So I'm going to make this a negative 24 times 2. Again, one more time because negative 24 times 2 is negative 48. And when you add them, you would get a negative 22. Now why a negative 22? Because that's the B value. Okay? Now, some people like this, some people don't. Now you need to watch what else you have to do. So you rewrite it. Okay? Here's how you rewrite your original. You'll do 16x squared just like you had. Now instead of negative 22x, you will write plus 2x from up here minus 24x from down here. And then you do the minus 3 equals 0 in the back. Okay? So these two replaced negative 22x. Right? So then what you do is you have to think back to algebra class and you have to factor by grouping. So I'm going to kind of put a little parenthesis around these and a little parenthesis, very light parentheses around those. Because I notice in the first two, I can bring out a 2 and an x. What will that leave me with? 16x squared divided by 2x is 8x. 2x divided by 2x is a 1. So I get 8x plus 1. In this parenthesis, if this number is negative, this 24 here, you always bring out a negative. And what goes into 24 and 3? A 3. So you bring out a negative 3, and you will be left with negative 24 divided by negative 3 is 8x. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a positive 1. Now you should notice at this step, these two should always be exactly the same. So you pull that out, and you will be left with a 2x minus a 3. At this point in time, your factoring is done. The last thing you need to do is solve, just like we have been doing. That's not new. Take away 1, divide by 8. Add 3, divide by 2. Okay? So this is what I call the book way. And this right here, this step is why students don't like it. This is called factoring by grouping. You group the first two, and you group the second two. So a lot of people don't like that. I'll try it one more time so you can see it worked out again. As you can see in this problem, and on your notes, I'm going to need you to change it. This used to be 6x squared equaled 4x plus 35. Can you please make this say 11? As you can see, I started doing the problem and realized that didn't factor. Okay, so one more time using what I call the book way. First thing you have to do is you have to set it equal to 0 before you do anything else. When you have Miss Miles, I expect you, anytime you see an x squared, to tell her that you need to set it equal to 0. Alright, now we go through the same process steps that we did on the other one. You start with 6 times negative 35. Okay, A times C. So 6 times negative 35 is negative 210. Now what we need to do is we need to think of numbers that multiply to negative 210, but they're going to add to that negative 11 that I made you guys change it to. Okay, that 4 should have been an 11. Alright, right off the bat, I'm going to say it's going to be negative 21 times 10, because I know negative 21 times 10 is a negative 210, but negative 21 plus 10 is a negative 11. Now you have to be good at multiplying in order to get this that easy. So what I'll do now is I need to rewrite it, just like I did over on the last one. So I do 6x squared. Instead of minus 11x, I write minus 21x, and I write plus 10x. And then I write my minus 35 equals 0. Okay? So I used these two to replace. Now we factor by grouping. On the first two terms, I know that 3 goes into both of them and an x. So I will pull out a 3x. That is going to leave me with, a 2x minus a 7. Now on this side, with the 10x and the 35, I'm going to pull out a positive 5. That will leave me with a 2x minus a 7. At this step here, they should always be exactly the same. You will then pull out the 2x minus the 7, and you will be left with the 3x plus the 5. And that is going to equal 0. From here on out, this is what I call the book way of factoring. You simply set them equal to 0 and solve them each individually. I don't care if you guys use this book way. I don't care if you use the guess and check way. All that I care is that you have your own method to correctly factor. So in this one you add 7, divide by 2, 7 over 2. This one you subtract 5, divide by 3, negative 5/3.